we say bye-bye.
What on earth is going on? The real reason that they are coming back. But all of a sudden, shit just got real, Tom. Holy mackerel.
Harry and Meghan have understood that if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed.
And they very much said to me, oh no, Meghan's going to stay in America.
The beginning of some type of separation.
He's forcing her hand. I'm going back with the children.
I agree.
This is why it was so sudden.
These two grifters have no idea what the United Kingdom thinks of them.
Meghan Markle may now be heading back toward Britain, but the explosive part is not the return itself. It is the claim that Harry was apparently prepared to do it without her. Before talk of a joint move began circulating, the picture was simple. Harry goes back to Britain, Meghan remains in California.
Even Harry had to wake up. And I do believe that this is the first step towards any type of separation, because Harry was unable to even countenance it if it meant he was stuck, miserable in the United States, with absolutely no way of bringing his children back to the UK. And the way that the Californian system works, it would have been nigh impossible in order to do so. That changes now. The game changes. They are enrolled in school at the United Kingdom.
Yes, I mean, it's a huge game changer.
Before we get into today's story, I wanted to let you know that I've finally launched my Patreon. Many of you have been asking for more royal family content, so that's exactly what I'll be posting there. Exclusive investigations, bonus videos, breaking royal news, and members-only discussions that won't be available on YouTube. If you're interested, you'll find the link in the description. Now, let's get into today's story. After years of presenting themselves as an inseparable team, that possibility changes the entire mood around this supposed homecoming.
When I spoke to this source earlier in the year, who was saying that Harry was going to look for a house here, and I was like, well, is Meghan, I was like, I can't see Meghan wanting to live in like the Cotswolds. I mean, I know there's a few fashionable Americans around, and it's not that far to Soho Farmhouse or Estelle Manor, but I mean, it's not exactly like a dream scenario, like for somebody who finds churches that smell a bit moldy or what have you. And they very much said to me, oh no, Meghan's going to stay in America. Meghan's going to stay in America, and Harry's just going to come back.
If Harry was already imagining a British life that did not require Meghan beside him, why did the plan suddenly become a family return? What changed behind the scenes? And is this really reconciliation with Britain? Or did remaining in America simply stop looking sustainable? Harry's interest in Britain does not appear to have come from nowhere. For months, he had reportedly been considering a base in the Cotswolds, near Highgrove, and in an area deeply familiar to him.
A friend of Harry's telling me that, he was going to go house hunting, that he was looking, and that person said to me that he was looking in the Cotswolds near Highgrove, where, of course, he grew up, where he knows everybody, where he knows the roads, where he knows the back roads, where he knows the pubs, where he knows the secret shortcuts and the footpaths and all those kinds of things, and still has a kind of network of people there. If they do go to the Cotswolds, then I think that the school will probably be Beaudesert, which, has some form in hosting royal kids.
Missing Britain is one thing. Looking at where you could actually live is another. Once someone starts thinking about houses, location, routine, and proximity to old connections, nostalgia begins to look more like preparation. Harry knows that part of the country, so the question was no longer simply whether he missed home. It was whether he was quietly working out how to build a real life there again.
It's good to see Harry and Meghan achieve 6 full tax years of non-UK residency to manage the temporary non-resident rules for capital gains tax. They have clearly had some good tax advice, and the timing of the move back to the UK is immaculate. Now, that is because HMRC, that's like the tax man here in the UK, has a rule designed to stop wealthy Brits scooting abroad, cashing in their assets and strolling back home. It's called the temporary non-residence rule, and it means that if you leave the UK and come back within 5 years, you never really left for tax purposes as far as capital gains are confirmed. But if you stay out for more than 5 years, which in practice means 6 complete calendar years, you're golden. Now look at the Sussex calendar. They left in March 2020, just before the tax year ended on the 5th of April. They have now been non-resident for, surprise, the requisite 6 full tax years.
Then came the detail that makes everything else look different. Meghan was reportedly not expected to move with him. The possibility being discussed was Harry in Britain and Meghan in America. That is striking after the last several years. They left royal duties together, built the Montecito identity together, and presented their new life as a shared reinvention.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK, of course I do. And I think it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
Yet when Britain re-entered Harry's plans, the first version allegedly had him creating a base thousands of miles away from his wife. Nobody has to claim a separation is confirmed to see why that caused alarm. When one partner is reportedly preparing to return to the place the other fought so hard to leave, the optics are impossible to ignore. Harry's own words have only added fuel to that interpretation. His descriptions of Britain have sounded increasingly emotional, while his language about America has sometimes felt less permanent.
There's been very little involvement in American life at all. He doesn't seem to have any American charities. He doesn't work with any American organizations. And everything that he says is about the United Kingdom. It's, I miss the bond, I miss the banter, I miss the bravery. I may currently live in the United States. I mean, that phrase now looks very telling, doesn't it, Dan? I may now currently live in the United States.
Change in language was so significant.
He has spoken about missing the bond, banter, and bravery associated with home. Even saying he may currently live in the United States sounds different once reports of a British property search sit beside it. Currently describes the present, not necessarily the future. For years, California was presented as the destination. Now the country Harry left is back at the center of his thinking, and the area most connected to his earlier life is reportedly where he wants a base.
I believe that this was so abrupt that there was a reason why. And I think it's because Harry is deciding on what he is going to do. Meghan, I don't think, is in agreement with this. I don't think she wants to come back. When she or Harry decides to leave, now he's got the upper hand with his family and the children already in school being established.
I guess maybe this is one thing that we should celebrate. Harry has forced Meghan Markle's hands and he is escaping. He is escaping.
But then the story takes a sharp turn. Meghan, who was supposedly going to remain in America, now appears to be part of the return plan too. Why would she suddenly be willing to move back toward a country that became the symbol of everything the Sussexes said they needed to escape? One unconfirmed allegation around the timing suggests renewed official scrutiny concerning Harry's U.S. immigration paperwork may have created fresh anxiety.
They're moving back to the United Kingdom because Harry is endangered as a result of the feds. On the 11th of August, there was a meeting with the feds where they were inquiring into and looking into the paperwork that he submitted.
That allegation has not been publicly established as fact and must be treated as exactly that, an allegation. But it has become linked to the speed with which this reported return appears to have accelerated. The allegation goes further, suggesting questions about immigration paperwork could potentially create serious consequences for Harry's status in the United States. Again, there is no public confirmation that such an outcome is unfolding. What makes the claim relevant is the timeline being presented.
The whole thing is rushed because Harry and Meghan had no idea what the feds were up to when the feds started to investigate all of the papers that he submitted starting on the 11th of August. And today is now the 20th of August. So we're speaking about 8 or 9 days. So obviously the whole thing is rushed because the axe is in danger of dropping.
Scrutiny allegedly intensified, and shortly afterward, a British move that had seemed gradual suddenly became urgent. At the same time, Meghan's reported position changed from staying in California to joining the return. If that sequence is even partly accurate, the move looks very different from a warm family homecoming. It starts to resemble an effort to create options quickly. The speed is exactly what makes people suspect that some new pressure arrived. Harry has talked about Britain, security, and family for years. He has missed events, fought over protection, and repeatedly described major obstacles to bringing his family back.
His visa entry, and that there is a strong belief by the feds that Harry lied on his paperwork to be able to gain admission to the United States.
Yet now, the idea appears to be moving forward without any obvious dramatic breakthrough. There has been no grand reconciliation with the palace and no sweeping security victory. Nevertheless, the move suddenly seems more realistic. Something changed. The unanswered question is whether the pressure is coming from the marriage, finances, court disputes, life in America, or several of those things at once. Money cannot be separated from this either. The California chapter was supposed to prove Harry and Meghan could build something enormous outside royal life.
For them, all their projects collapsed in America. I mean, I think they're doing this because there is no alternative. If the marriage collapses in California, huge problem for Prince Harry to ever gain access or be able to bring his children back to the United Kingdom. Do you think it is partly to do with Harry wanting to provide some protection if things do not work out? Or do you think actually it's very much career and money focused and they are still united in this mission?
It involved entertainment deals, media projects, business ventures, and the idea that the Sussex name would become its own global machine. Reality has been less smooth. Projects have stalled or vanished, partnerships have ended, and their commercial momentum has looked less reliable. At the same time, Montecito, private protection, staff, travel, and court disputes all cost serious money. So when Harry looks back to Britain, it is hard to treat it as purely emotional.
Harry and Meghan have understood that if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed, and they could not afford the embarrassment.
Britain could offer family proximity and a very different practical structure for his life. Security is one of the clearest examples. For years, Harry has argued that his protection situation made normal family life in Britain too difficult. A more permanent UK base, however, could alter how his circumstances are assessed. If he became more involved in royal-adjacent charitable work or spent substantially more time in the country, the security discussion could return in a different form. None of that guarantees a particular outcome, but it changes the calculation. Private protection in the United States is enormously expensive.
One of the main reasons that they don't have security is because they are not in the bracket of people who are protected. They are not in the cohort of people who are protected. And one of the factors that means they are not in that cohort is that they do not live in the United Kingdom. Now, if they live in the United Kingdom, they tick one of the boxes.
If a British return reduced even part of that burden, the financial logic of coming back would look very different from remaining permanently in California. There is also the tax timing. Harry and Meghan have now spent 6 complete UK tax years living abroad. Britain's temporary non-residence rules can treat certain gains differently, depending on how long someone has been outside the country before returning. That does not prove a financial motive. It simply means returning after this period may be more convenient than returning sooner. In plain English, the timing is not meaningless from a tax perspective.
We know that finances are a big issue too. Like, we know the money is running out. We obviously don't have sight of the bank accounts, but we have a good idea that they never received all of the money from the Spotify deal, the Netflix deal. The inheritance has been burnt through. The legal costs have racked up. And what is interesting, Lady C, is it does benefit Harry and Meghan to move now in terms of tax. And again, that might be something that people dismiss, but there's actually a lot of money at stake here.
If a return was always being considered, this is a more logical point to do it than several years earlier. Alone, that proves nothing, but it adds another practical incentive to a pile that is already growing. Put those pieces together, and the simple, sentimental explanation begins to look incomplete. Harry reportedly wanted a British home and was apparently prepared to establish it even if Meghan stayed in America. Their commercial life in California has become less predictable. Security remains costly. The tax calendar has reached a potentially useful point.
Where is their apology to us? You know, I want them on their knees, groveling. I'm sorry, great British public, for suggesting that you were racist for voting Brexit. I'm sorry, great British public, for suggesting that your British royal family was racist. I'm sorry for driving the late Queen Elizabeth II and the late Prince Philip to an early grave because of the stress and the pressure. I'm sorry for making the King's cancer diagnosis and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, cancer diagnosis so much worse than it could have been. I have a feeling we'll be waiting a while for that.
Then an unconfirmed immigration-related allegation appears as the move accelerates. Any one factor could be coincidence. Together, they create a much more complicated picture. "We miss family" is a neat explanation. Our American setup is becoming harder, more expensive, and less stable than expected would be messier, but it would explain why so many old positions are changing at once. The most uncomfortable question is what a British base could mean if the marriage ever broke down. There is no confirmation that Harry and Meghan are divorcing.
Finally proven to be true, something I'd been reporting for a long time, that Meghan Markle had actually shopped the possibility of a post-divorce autobiography while she still was with Harry. Now, before it appeared in the pages of Vanity Fair, it was very easy to say, oh, you're talking rubbish. But, you know, I had reported that she didn't want to do her autobiography until she had ended until the marriage had collapsed, because there was a possibility the marriage would collapse.
But one theory is that Harry would need a genuine life in Britain before any future separation could become practically manageable. As long as his entire family life remained rooted in California, moving back permanently would be far more complicated. Once Britain becomes a real family base again, even part-time, the geography changes. Harry would have somewhere established to return to and relationships to rebuild. That does not mean a split is planned. It means the move could give Harry options he did not have while his life was centered completely in America.
What on earth is going on? Just weeks after you revealed to the world this close, shall we say, friendship that Prince Harry had developed with a certain young lady in Montecito, they claim to be packing their bags.
That is why the original idea, Harry returns, Meghan stays, matters so much. Imagine what that would have looked like publicly. Harry rebuilding in Britain, Meghan remaining in California, different homes, different countries, and increasingly separate routines. The image of the Sussexes as one unit would immediately weaken. Then, suddenly, Meghan is reportedly coming too. Did she simply change her mind about Britain?
Harry needing to bring the children to the United Kingdom in case this marriage does end up collapsing.
Did the practical advantages become impossible to resist? Or did the idea of Harry building a completely independent British life create a situation she did not want developing without her? No one outside the marriage can know. But the sequence naturally raises the question. Another strange part is that Montecito may not disappear from their lives at all. They are reportedly not racing to cut every tie with California. Keeping a huge American property while creating a substantial base in Britain would be expensive and complicated.
Once Meghan and those children are back in the United Kingdom, that means that the marital home is in the United Kingdom. That means that Harry is in a far stronger position.
It would create a two-country existence. Britain when it offers family, status, or practical advantages. California when it offers business and celebrity access. In a strange way, that resembles the half-in, half-out arrangement they once wanted around royal duties, only now applied to homes and countries. The problem is that the palace rejected the original version of that balancing act. Moving back near the royals does not automatically reopen it. King Charles is therefore a major part of what happens next. A father may want a relationship with his son that is not the same as the monarch restoring Harry to his former position.
This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point. but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife. My father and my brother, they are trapped.
Conversation with you?
With Harry.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Harry can return to Britain as a private individual, rebuild family contact, and spend more time near his father. None of that automatically makes him a working royal again or guarantees the status, role, or support he might hope to regain. If part of the value of returning depends on getting closer to the official royal system, that distinction matters enormously. Living near the palace is not the same as being invited back inside it.
The video of Meghan Markle saying, we're not going to send our kids to school in the United Kingdom where they're going to be papped day in and day out as they are arriving.
Even if Charles is open to a warmer private relationship, the past 6 years do not vanish because Harry changes address. Britain remembers the interviews, accusations, lawsuits, and public family breakdown. Royal staff remember. The public remembers. Most importantly, William remembers. A return can change geography, but it cannot erase trust problems. If Harry and Meghan expect living in Britain again to restore their old relevance, they may discover that the country they return to is not the country they left. The institution continued without them, relationships hardened, and the future of the monarchy is moving increasingly toward William.
Truth of the matter is these two's oxygen, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just hers, is attention. Do they have any idea, do you think, how loathed people feel about the millions because of the way they treated the Duke of Edinburgh? You said it half an hour ago, the Queen. And that's the reason that I believe that William has an issue here.
That makes William the biggest long-term obstacle Harry faces. Charles may be motivated by family and a desire to avoid permanent estrangement. William's position is different. He is not simply Harry's brother, he is the future king. There is no indication that William is preparing to erase what happened and welcome Harry back into official royal life. Harry may improve things privately with his father and slowly rebuild contact. But if the relationship with William remains frozen, there is a hard ceiling on any royal comeback. Whatever Harry negotiates today exists under a future in which William will ultimately control the institution.
I'm not sure that they're going to be able to maintain Montecito indefinitely, but they certainly need to maintain the illusion of having Montecito as a residence at the moment.
So, what would Meghan be returning to? Britain is not an easy environment for her. Her public standing there has been badly damaged. Trust inside the royal family remains fractured. The future king may have little appetite for restoring Harry's official place. Security is still unresolved. The media environment was one of the major reasons the couple said they needed to leave. And hanging over all of it is the claim that Harry was initially prepared to return without her. That is why this does not look like an obvious victory lap. It looks more like a difficult option that may have become preferable because the alternatives were getting worse.
All of this might play so well that Harry gets away with everything. And he has ended up back here with the children, where it's going to be in the event of a divorce.
If the Sussexes do return in a meaningful way, the symbolism will be enormous. Their post-royal identity was built around the idea that leaving Britain created freedom, opportunity, and a better life. Coming back would show that the break was never as final as it looked. Harry could return and still find himself without an official royal function. Meghan could return while keeping California as her true center of gravity, reviving criticism of a half-in, half-out lifestyle. And if there is genuine strain inside the marriage, Britain could become the place where the differences between their preferred futures are much harder to hide. Now place the immigration allegation back into that picture. If it is wrong, the timing may simply be coincidence and the claim may disappear.
A Spare 2.0 will absolutely be in the works. And then there'll be the Netflix specials. It'll be Harry and Meghan, My Life in the Country, Harry and Meghan and the Chickens, Harry and Meghan on the Farm. Heck, they may as well make an appearance on Love Island while they're there. In Search of a Duchess, the farmer wants a wife style. I mean, this is the kind of crap that they would do to make money.
If Harry truly believed there was any realistic risk of formal problems with his status in America, however, that would create a very different level of urgency. It could explain why a slow move suddenly sped up and why Meghan's reported position changed. The important distinction is that none of this has been publicly proven. The allegation is relevant only as one possible explanation for behavior that otherwise appears unusually abrupt. It should not be treated as evidence that immigration action is actually happening. Meghan ends up in an awkward position, whichever version you believe. If there is no immigration issue, she still appears willing to return to a country she had powerful reasons to leave, while Harry was reportedly ready to go first without her. If the allegation does reflect genuine pressure, the move looks less like a triumphant comeback and more like a hurried attempt to protect their options. Neither interpretation places Meghan completely in control.
If Charles gives Harry a very minor role at a very minor charity, they are suddenly working royals again, and they will be entitled to security.
The royal duties, because it's already happening. The briefing is already happening. It's just being done subtly.
In one, Harry was already designing a route back to Britain. In the other, outside circumstances forced a rapid rethink. Either way, the image of a perfectly planned Sussex strategy becomes harder to maintain. That is why talk of a possible separation will not disappear, simply because they may now travel together. There is no established evidence that a divorce is underway, but the reported order of events is remarkable. Harry looks toward Britain. He explores where he might live. The possibility emerges that Meghan could remain in America. Then, the idea changes into a joint return. At the same time, finances, security, tax timing, royal relationships, and an unconfirmed immigration allegation all enter the same conversation. Even without declaring the marriage is ending, it is easy to see why people are asking whether Harry was preparing a life that could function independently from Meghan.
It comes down to one thing. I got the distinct impression they hated this country, thought this country was racist, thought this country was not the sort of place they wanted to bring up. They didn't want to be part of the royal family. They found it too suffocating. And now, because they're on their backsides, they're crawling back to us. 2 more economic migrants looking for a way out.
The next moves will tell us far more than any carefully worded announcement. Does Meghan actually spend long stretches in Britain, or does California remain her true home? Does Harry secure a permanent place near Highgrove and rebuild a normal British routine? Does Charles give him any meaningful public role, or keep reconciliation strictly private? Does William meet him halfway, or keep the boundary exactly where it is? Does the immigration allegation fade away, or does new information appear? Most importantly, do Harry and Meghan genuinely build one shared life across the Atlantic, or do their schedules slowly reveal 2 different futures behind one public plan? There are several ways this can end. It could be a sincere family reset in which Britain becomes part of their lives again. It could be a practical effort to regain royal proximity after the American dream delivered less stability than expected.
Harry was so uplifted by the small crowds that showed up for him when he was in the UK in July. You know, he went home and reported to Meghan. People were asking about her. People were cheering for him. That's because sane people don't show up for people they don't like. You know what? People that don't like you aren't going to show up where you're at,
Or it could become the first stage of Harry rebuilding a British identity strong enough to exist on its own if the marriage ever fails. Right now, the public-facing story can still be sold as a reunion, but the reported details underneath it are more uncomfortable. Harry was supposedly willing to return alone. Meghan then appears to change course. The palace is not promising a restored royal role, and William remains the hardest person in Harry's path. That is what makes this supposed homecoming so different from a simple move. Too many things appear to be shifting at the same time. Harry spent years arguing that Britain was too difficult and too unsafe for the family life he wanted. Meghan built her second act around California, celebrity and independence from the royal machine. Now both may be moving back toward the system they walked away from. Maybe it really is about family. Maybe it is about money, security, and practicality. Maybe it is about pressure inside the marriage. Most likely, several forces are colliding at once.
It's interesting that all of this dovetails with the feds coming after Harry for having possibly falsified his application forms, because I don't think that they would have moved quite so quickly and quite so decisively had they not discovered that the feds that he stands a chance.
The real question is what changed in America And between the two of them, that suddenly made going back look like the better choice. If you enjoyed this video and want even more royal family content, don't forget to check out my Patreon. I'm uploading exclusive investigations, bonus content, and members-only videos that won't be released on YouTube. I'll be adding new content regularly. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to everything, the link is in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.